Well, hello everybody. This is Paul Alster with you. It's great for you to have taken the time out of your Thursday evening to join me for this Cheltenham Festival preview here at SportsBet. Now, you're probably used to seeing me, those of you that follow on a regular basis, sitting here looking rather serious and rattling through all the different selections that I have for a weekend. Well, this format this time around is just a little bit different because obviously we're live. I've never done this before, so it's going to be quite a challenge. And I'm going to look over the 4 days of the upcoming Cheltenham Festival, giving you a few thoughts. And obviously I'll be featuring some of the horses that I think are going to run well. And we're hoping that it's going to be as successful a time this Cheltenham as we had last Cheltenham, which was particularly memorable. I want to first of all, though, before I go any further, just thank everybody that's been following me since I started offering my thoughts on racing and on tipping back in July of 2020, which was during the height of the coronavirus. And the idea just came after a discussion with my friend Robert Waterman, who hosts these broadcasts. And having had quite a lot of success since I switched to concentrating on the bigger odds horses, Robert said, well, why don't you give us a few thoughts and we'll see how it goes. So that's the way this all came to be. And the lovely thing is that it seems that we've got a great bunch of people following. And I know there are about 5,800 people that are registered and that we get quite a lot of views. And I like the feedback. Even when people have a go, I don't mind that. I really don't. I know that some people, I read with interest that Tom Siegel, the Racing Post, who's such a wonderful tipster, don't look at social media because he's terrified of what people say about him. But you've got to be able to take the rough with the smooth, as long as it's done in good heart and not offensive in any way. Now, talking of which, I'm sure none of you lot out there are at all offensive, but we've got a moderator looking at your comments, which I see are already coming in. So a very big thank you to the likes of John Morris and Owen Harris and Mal Lloyd, Andrew West and Simon Maul, Gary Smith, Glenn Cobble, plenty of others, Gary Tippett and Matt Colin. I've loved you ever since the glory days of Jeff Kidder. Thank you. And Jack Clark and others. Well, I'm going to take a look at your comments there as those come in. I'm trying to figure out how to use all the technology. And we've also received some questions in the last few days as well, which I'll be highlighting too. So feel free to make a comment here or there along the way. One thing I would say is that I'm not a full-time tipster. You know, I don't get up in the morning, have my breakfast, and then sit down all day trying to figure out the form book. I do other things. I'm a journalist and a broadcaster, and I've concentrated on international news and things over the last decade or so. But I've always maintained my love of racing and having a flutter. Going back to the time when I was a commentator, some of you may remember me if you're very old, as a commentator, and then I was an SP returner, which I'll come on to later on. And of course, I was a form analyst, and I've bred racehorses. I've owned horses as well. So racing is really in my blood. So I've been doing this because I just enjoy taking a few hours out to sit down and look at the relative chances of different horses. Now, the Cheltenham Festival is, of course, a bit of a lottery in many ways. But one thing I've found that over the last 18, 20 months of tipping is that I've been able to show a profit over extended periods. Now, you go through quiet times, as I had, in December, January was pretty rough. It was very quiet. But here, as you see, and a big thanks to Joe, who's Joe Smith, producing our images as well for this live broadcast. Poor fella's got to try and keep up with my waffle and fit the images in to go with it. But you see there that in the very first year to July 21, I showed a very healthy profit, £1,886.50 to what are nominal £10 each way stakes. I know not all of you will be putting that kind of money on, and I wouldn't encourage you to if that's not your kind of a market. Some of you may have 50 pence each way. Some of you may go in heavier, I don't know. But also in 2021, in the calendar year, again, very profitable indeed, 1,576 and change. So we're going to have big winners. I had to laugh, actually, at one comment from one chap who said just, was it last week? Well, apart from Jeff Kidder or whatever, you didn't do very well, did you, at Cheltenham last year? Well, you're showing over £1,000 profit, and there was, I think, 6 or 7 big prize placed horses, and it's not as if it's a one-off. It's the kind of comment that you get a bit like out of Monty Python, what did the Romans do for us? Well, in my case, apart from an 80 to 1, 66 to 1, 33, 25 twice, 20 to 1 3 times, 18, 16, and plenty of other shorter, what winners have I tipped you? You can't please everybody all the time, and I don't mind. But sometimes we're going to have quiet periods, and other times we're going to get on a roll, and let's hope we're able to do that again this year. So let's get cracking, and let's have a look at Cheltenham. Now, I was just, before we went live, I was just looking at the Racing Post, as one does, and I noted that they're now saying that they're expecting the ground to be good to soft. It's standing at good to soft at the moment, and there was even a suggestion that they might be watering if the rains that have been expected don't come. Now, this is one of the problems of tipping ahead of time, never mind not knowing exactly which horses are running. You can't be sure what type of ground and conditions they're going to face either. So this is a very, very kind of movable feast. And what I will be doing next week is offering you my more precise thoughts the day before each of the 4 days of the festival. So I'm going to start off on Monday. You'll probably get a message late afternoon that I've put my selections up. For Tuesday, it'll be Tuesday for Wednesday, Wednesday for Thursday, and Thursday for Friday. And as always, take a look at what I have to say, and you can either say he's talking rubbish, or you can decide, well, maybe that one's worth a chance, or I'll do a few of these in doubles and trebles and hope for the best. So let's hope it's going to be a good one. But at the moment, it looks like we might be getting drying ground. Now, I noticed that in your comments just already coming through, a couple of people have asked about Protectorate, who, of course, is likely to go for the Gold Cup. He is a horse that I think his real chance, and I don't think his connections have been shy about talking about this, depends on there being plenty of giving the ground. So I would say that if you're in the Protectorate camp, that you'd want to hope that there's plenty of rain before the 4th day. If not, his chance will diminish, and I would imagine that his odds will probably drift out. Somebody else I noticed just asking as well, before we get into it, was asking about whether you should be taking the anti-post prices now and hoping for the best. To be honest, I'd pretty much now be waiting to know exactly what's going to run. I know a lot of firms are going non-run and no bet, which is fair enough. I prefer to see at this stage what's going to run, and you can also be pretty sure that once the racing markets really get underway in the days leading up to the race, and most particularly on the day itself, all those betting firms are going to be desperate to try and get your money in their collective satchels, and there'll be a horses drifting out big. Now, Jeff Kidd is a horse we've spoken about a lot because I tipped him at 80 to 1. He won at 80 to 1 last year. But you will remember that when I tipped him at the time of the tip, the day before, he was a 33 to 1 chance. But he kept drifting and drifting all the way out to 80 to 1. So you do find very often that in the half hour or even the 10 minutes before the off, you can see horses' prices, especially if you bet on the machine on the exchanges, really drifting out to remarkable figures. So I'm not sure that you'd want to be rushing in at this stage now to be getting involved in the anti-post market. That would just be my thought on that particular subject. So let's start off with the first question that came in the other day, and that was from Dan Gunn. So Dan, thanks very much for writing in, and he says, "Hi Paul," that's me, "any chance of an each way lucky 15 selection for the whole festival, the best 4 for the week?" Thanks for the tips, by the way. Glad February was a good month. I'm glad February was a good month as well, because I don't like backing losers for any long period, I can promise you. Well, I will, at the end of this bulletin, be giving you my picks, 4 picks, one for each day of the festival. So do stick around for that. I'm sure you'll get plenty of clues as we move along, because you'll be able to understand which of the horses that I'm hoping, 1, are going to run, and 2 are going to run very well. So let's just start off with day 1. So it's going to be Tuesday. It looks like we're going to be starting off on good to soft ground, and the meeting is set to begin with the Supreme Novices Hurdle, of course, which is the traditional opener of the festival, and it is, of course, going to be the most tremendous festival without a doubt. By the way, I know there's a lot of talk about extending the festival and going for 5 days and all the rest of it. I'm really not in favor of that. I just don't see why you'd want to water down such a fantastic 4 days to include more modest races. I have to say that even now they are the 4 days, there are plenty of races that I just don't even look at, and I'll come on to that. So that the Supreme Novices Hurdle is always a cracking start, and we've got the likes of Constitution Hill and Sir Gerhard, Desert Dynamo and John Bon and Kilcrut and others. Problem is, as in so many races at the festival at this stage, horses have multiple declarations, and we're not quite sure who's going to run where. And the Supreme Novices Hurdle, for me, is just a race that I'm not going to be getting involved in. So I'm going to move on past that. I will no doubt be looking much closer at the race to see if there is any value at decent each way odds once we get the final declarations in. And if you're new to following what I have to say, well, I'm always looking to try and bet each way for decent prices, because I just think that in the long run, and I don't think you need to be a genius to figure it out. In the long run, if you're betting short price favourites, you're just not going to make it pay unless you have an absolutely extraordinary strike rate. And that's what keeps the bookies in business, to be honest. The other thing that keeps the bookies in business is people betting frivolously, having a bet in every race and all. Forget that, particularly at Cheltenham. Try and be disciplined. Don't be tempted to get involved in every race, and just focus on certain horses and do a little bit of homework, and then you're likely to come out with a better chance of making it pay. But even if you don't make it pay, bet in proportion and enjoy it, because this is the greatest show on turf. I know Royal Ascot is wonderful and there's other great meetings, but Cheltenham, there's nothing quite like it. It is absolutely the top of the tree. Well, the Arkle Chase is the second race of the festival, and this again is a very, very good race. I think Edwardstone might prove quite hard to beat, actually. And of course, the Irish are going to dominate. I think they're going to run the Brits ragged once again. They just have so much more strength in depth. And of course, they seem to have more competitive racing. I've been talking a lot about the number of small fields of late, not just me, a lot of people in the racing industry, and in particularly in Britain. It is becoming a major concern. But I think Edwardstone is a very strong candidate for the Brits. Nothing at a price at this point really stands out for me in the Arkle. But interesting, a message here from John Jenkins, who got in touch. I'm not sure if that's the trainer, John Jenkins, but if not, I'm sure he's a very good John Jenkins. He thanks me for the good form for February and hopes it continues. And that my throat gets better, because it was a bit croaky last week. I'm doing all right now. So speaking of Cheltenham, do you believe that Cur Sublime can cause an upset in the Arkle if he runs? Well, I'm not so sure I do. He's just about the highest rated of these over hurdles, Cur Sublime. And he's run well behind Fernie Hollow a couple of times before winning an egg and spoon race at Gowran last time out. He did it very well. And he's trained by Henry de Bromhead, who had such an amazing time of things last season. But I wouldn't be jumping in myself, but I wouldn't put you off. these races so often come up with horses that can just find that little bit extra and have been primed to run to their absolute best. Now, I just want to focus on a horse here that's going to crop up a few times in this live feed, and his name is Jungle Boogie. First of all, it's a great name, so that's worth talking about. Jungle Boogie, good number. And Jungle Boogie, for me, is the most interesting horse of the whole Cheltenham Festival. And I'll tell you for why, because first of all, he's trained by Willie Mullins, and there he is, really lovely horse, fabulous stamp of a horse, very lightly raced. He's only had the 3 runs. He's trained by Willie Mullins, and this horse, I think, potentially could be a real star. They've had problems with him training him, but he's really shown so much ability, and he won a bumper, and then he won a maiden hurdle, and then he's won his only chase. He's only had 3 runs under rules in his life. Now, if you look at the entries for Jungle Boogie, it's astonishing, because Jungle Boogie is entered in the 2-mile race here, the Arkle. He's in the Grade 1 2.5-mile novice chase. He's in the 3-mile novice chase, and he's in the 3 3/4-mile national hunt chase. Now, he won so impressively last time out when he beat Diol Kerr, and I can't believe they're going to run him back over 2 miles. I know they seem to think this horse has so much ability, speed, stamina, the temperament and everything. And I personally hope he's going to run in the National Hunt Chase, because if he does, I'll be getting involved in Jungle Boogie. I think he's a horse with so much talent, and he's already rated 148 after just 1 run over fences and only the 3rd run of his life. So that's the horse that I'm looking out for throughout this festival, as a horse who really could produce something. And Willie Mullins obviously is perming as many options as possible and taking everything into consideration as he juggles his team. But I hope, I don't think Willie's going to be watching, but if somebody is and happens to mention him, I'd like to see him go for the National Hunt Chase, because he's got such a great cruising speed and lovely long stride, and he seems to jump well. And I think they'll just go hunting around for a circuit, and then his class might carry him through. So that's the Arkle. Also, Paulie Harris asked about St Sam in the same race. Well, he tried to give a stone to Jeff Kidder in the Boodles last year. He was a very, very good second there, which was a great run. And he went off fast in a Grade 1 last time out, but only beaten 4.5 lengths behind Blue Lord. So he's not without a chance, but we shall see. So the first 2 races I'm not really getting involved in, but let me take you on to race number 3 at Cheltenham, which is the Ultima Handicap Chase. And I really do like the big handicaps, as you're very well aware. And I'll probably be having my first big, well, big-ish bet at the meeting. I don't get as heavily involved as maybe I once did. There was one horse that I was hoping was going to run, but he hasn't been declared. That's Sandy Thompson's Empire Steel. So look out for him wherever he turns up, because I think he's a horse who's going to make a name for himself. But the horse that I think is worth a second glance in the Ultima Handicap Chase is called Lost in Translation. And Lost in Translation is trained by Colin Tizard, who, of course, has had a great career. And Brendan Powell is going to ride. He's already jocked up on the horse, so they're certainly, I think, going to run. And it'd be great for Colin, who's had so many superb winners at this meeting, Hugh Card in particular, very, very memorably on a number of occasions. I know he thinks the world of this horse, and he's been very highly regarded and, of course, very talented. He was 3rd in a Gold Cup 2 years ago to Album Photo, beaten only 1.5 lengths. And he's had his problems since then, a couple of wind surgeries, but he came back with a bang on his first start this season, beating Master Tommy Tucker in a Grade 2 at Ascot. He then didn't really run his race at Kempton in the King George. And, well, I think you can ignore his run at Ascot last time out, where they pulled him up. It was that really bad ground in which Fakir Doderi won. But I think this is ready-made for him, because this is a horse who ran up 173 when 3rd in the Gold Cup just 2 years ago. And he's going to be running off a much lower mark here, 155. So he's into a handicap here. He is a horse that, if he is right, I would imagine that he is going to go very well indeed. And just taking a look at the kind of odds that are available at the moment for Lost in Translation, and I think we're looking at about 16 to 1, something like that, maybe 20s in a place. Yeah, I see that Paddy Power just going 20 at the moment with Betfair and Unibet and one or two others. I think that each way, playing for 5 places at the moment. I'm sure on the day there'll be plenty of firms offering you 6 or even 7 places if we get the runners. But Lost in Translation for me is a horse. I think he's going to run a very, very big race, and he'll be one that I'm very interested in on day 1 in the Ultima. Now, just going back to some of the questions, and Rachel Duncan, thank you, Rachel, for your message. She says, "Hi, Paul. The one horse I'm looking to back at Cheltenham is the Shunter. He was my banker last year." So you've made a few bob, Rachel. That's good. And I think he'll win again this year if he runs. Well, he might. He certainly might. But of course, if he's going over fences, he's going to carry a lot more weight. So I'm not sure he's going to run in this. They may well run him over hurdles. I think he has entries in, is it the Coral Cup? Something like that, and maybe 1 or 2 other races. But if he goes over hurdles, he's got a lower mark over hurdles. And you may remember him winning last year at Kelso, just before he came on to win at Cheltenham. And I think he got the bonus, didn't he, for connections. So I think if he goes back to hurdles, your horse, the Shunter, might go very well. I'd be less inclined to support him for the Ultima, although I am aware that there has been money for him in this market, I believe. So, we'll have to wait and see. But for me, I think that the hurdles route is the one for the Shunter. We'll have to see. As I say, Empire Steel was a horse that I was very interested in, but he's not going to run. And then I'm going to take you on now to the Champion Hurdle, because this always is such a great race. So many great memories from the Champion Hurdle, going back to Night Nurse a long time ago. And of course, so many fabulous horses over the years. This year's Champion Hurdle, well, Honeysuckle, of course, is the one to beat. And she's a wonderful mare. I know a lot of people would argue that if she didn't have the mare's allowance, she might not be the good thing that a lot of people think she is, but that's just the way it is. That's the way the cards are dealt. And I wouldn't want a better odds on, even though she is likely to win. We could be looking at a small field. I'm sure that the executive at Cheltenham will be really hoping that the horses stand their ground. Only 10 runners at the moment at the 5-day stage. And, well, she will be hard to beat if she puts in a clear round, but it's just too short. And I'm always looking for a horse to take on an odds-on chance, especially in a championship race. Now, Appreciated, of course, for Willie Mullins is unbeaten over hurdles. He was brilliant at the meeting last year, but he hasn't run for a year. It doesn't worry me. I think Willie Mullins will have him absolutely spot on. Will he be quite good enough? We'll know on the day. Tihupo, another one for Gordon Elliott, is a horse who really has so much ability. I mean, he's a very, very exciting horse. I don't fancy Epatante. The figures speak for themselves. She's rated £12 inferior to Honeysuckle, and I think it would be a big surprise. I don't think she's improving, the former champion. Now, there's a few runners in this race that I think are of interest. First of all, Tommy's Oscar has been so progressive. And if you're looking at a trainer who's been arguably the star of the season, you'd have to say it's Hannah Hamilton as far as strike rate goes. I mean, she has this remarkable strike rate. I haven't looked recently, but it's over 40%. And, she trains just a few horses and she keeps mopping up all these big races. And I'm sure they think Tommy's Oscar is going to run its race. So I wouldn't put anybody off having a couple of bob each way on Tommy's Oscar, but I think the each way value here, and a horse that I will be backing, is Adagio. And Adagio is trained by David Pipe, and Tom Scudamore is on board. And he's a horse I've always liked. You may remember him finishing second in the Triumph Hurdle last year behind Quilixios. He then went to Aintree and finished second to Montmiral. I think he probably left his race behind at Cheltenham, at Aintree. And here you see him, lovely athletic sort of a horse. Tom Skoo is going to be on board. He's sure to give him a ride. And he gave him a tremendous ride on his reappearance in the Greatwood Hurdle, the Grade 3 at Cheltenham in November. And he ran an absolute cracker of a race, giving £13 to West Cork. And he was only beaten 3/4 of a length there. That was a great start to the season. And then he had a break, and he had a run just a few weeks ago at Wincanton in that very testing ground, where he cruised up, absolutely cruised up to Goshen between the final two. He looked to be going the better at the last. And then Goshen, who loves going right-handed, as we all know, found that little bit extra. But you probably would note that even though Tom rode him out, he didn't give him too hard a race. And I think that will have put him spot on after the previous 97-day break. Now, granted that this horse has quite a bit to find on the figures. He's only rated 152. He's one of the lowest rated horses in the field. But he is only a 5-year-old, and he's sure to be getting better. And I know they held him in such high regard. And I'm not worried about the ground being good to soft. I think that will be fine for him, even though he's won with plenty of cut in the past. And I think if they go a really good gallop, if we get a good pace, which I'm hoping there'll be some pace on in this race, I think that Adagio could be there to possibly pick up the pieces in a race that I'm hoping is going to hold up to give us an each-way opportunity. So this might be a race, actually, where you would be tempted to bet each way now, because at around 14-1 or thereabouts, Adagio, if it only cuts up to 6 or 7 runners, then of course that will all change. So Adagio, I am going to take on Honeysuckle and appreciate it with Adagio, and hope that maybe the home team can have something to celebrate with a big winner in the Champion Hurdle on day 1. So that's my thought with Adagio there. I'm just going to cut away to one or two of your comments here. Let's have a look. Jungle Book not qualified for the National Hunt Chase. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Brian Marjorie said, I'll have to have a look at that. And we'll have to have a look. No, Adagio has no chance, says Andrew Wardlaw. Not good enough. Well, you might be right, but then again, you might not. We'll have to see soon enough. There's been plenty of surprises over the years. Remember Punjabi. Anyway, let's just move on and just take you on to a comment from Giles Dexter. Now, Giles, thank you for mailing in, and he asked me to have a look at the betting without markets for the feature races. Now, for those of you that don't know what the betting without markets are, it's when you have a real hot pot, a real hot favourite in a race, and the bookies think that people might not want to get involved, so they form a market without the actual favourite, so you win or be second to the horse in question, in this case Honeysuckle. So Adagio is 6-1, I think, without for the Champion Hurdle, and that might be a bet that appeals to some people to take, especially if we end up with a few non-runners, who knows. So the bet without markets are interesting, and there'll be other races during the course of the meeting that it's worth checking out. But personally, I don't often get involved in those markets. In fact, I'm trying to remember the last time I did, but I think 6-1 without Honeysuckle is not a bad price. Well, I'm going to move on. I'm going to say, first of all, that I don't like the mares races at the festival. Interested to hear what you think, but they just don't do it for me. I'm not keen on these type of races, so I'm not even going to make a comment about the mares race. I'm going to take you straight on to the 6th race of the festival, which is the Boodles Juvenile Handicap Hurdle. Now, of course, it's got very happy memories because of that superb win we had last year with Jeff Kidder, and I hope plenty of you managed to find him that day, whatever odds you were on. I know some people were on at over 100-1 and on the machine at 120-1 and so on. It was a great moment, and I got a new piano as a keepsake. One thing I would always say, by the way, is that if you do have a nice win, a really tasty win, it's something I've always done over the years from as far back as I can remember. In fact, the picture behind me, I don't know if you can see this if I just move the camera a little bit, but the picture behind me is of Dawn Run winning the 1986 Gold Cup. And Dawn Run actually was a real terrific win for me in the 86 Gold Cup. And with my winnings, I went out and bought that painting, and here I am quite a few years later, and I've still got that particular painting as a memory of that wonderful moment. I've always gone out and got something or done something, gone on holiday or whatever, and I was really pleased to see that when Jeff Kidder won, so many of you were writing in to say you got the car fixed, or you'd decided to go out for a slap-up meal or done something special. So always great. I got myself a piano, and although my wife's not overly happy sometimes at my Les Dawson impressions, which are not intended, I'm loving it, and that's my memory really of Jeff Kidder. Now, this year, the Boodles is another red-hot race, and I mean, it's really tough, especially at this stage, not knowing exactly what's going to run. But what I would say was there's an absolutely remarkable market for this race because of the Willie Mullins trained horse that is going to run here called Gaelic Warrior. Now, Gaelic Warrior is an ex-French horse, hasn't had a run in Ireland or in England, and is a 9-4 favourite for this race, which means that at home, he's obviously been showing something really very, very good. And Willie, such a superb, brilliant trainer, obviously feels he's got him on the kind of mark that you just can't turn down. So if he turns up and if he jumps a clear round and if he doesn't get into trouble in running, it might turn out that he, in hindsight, he proves to be the better of the meeting. But at 9-4, top of the head, you just wouldn't want to get involved, I don't think. You just wouldn't want it. So I've been looking for something that is going to be a price. Now, we had one or two interesting comments, and Andrew West wrote in and he said, there is a different horse with a Jeff Kidder connection, Ben Siegel, from the same stable. That, of course, is the stable of Noel Mead. And Ben Siegel is a horse who I think was originally in the entries, but I don't think he has stood his ground, if memory serves me correctly, for this particular race. So Ben Siegel won't be running, but I do think that his stable companion has got a massive chance here. And his stable companion is Luna Power, a general 20-1 chance at the moment. Now, he may well get bigger, Luna Power, but this is a horse I've been keeping an eye on for a while. And Luna Power is a lovely type of a horse, really talented, rangy type of a chestnut. There you see him, big white face he's got. And he was not a bad horse at all on the flat. Just a nice, solid handicapper, running at up to a mile and a half with some success at around the mid-70s mark. Now, he's just had the 4 runs over hurdles, and he won at Punchestown in November. He beat Ibarit de Soy in really good fashion. And then he went to a grade 3 at Fairyhouse, where he was second to Field d'Or. Now, Field d'Or is a probable runner in this Boodles and is quite a short price. I think may well be second favourite. And then he took on Field d'Or again at Leopardstown in the grade 2 at the Christmas meeting, and again finished second, at that time beaten a little bit further, but that was on soft ground. Now, the key to this horse, I believe, is a decent surface. Indeed, you look at all his flat form, and he's run really well on good ground. He's even run well on good to firm. So if the good to soft ground that is being forecast comes up, then that will be to his liking, no doubt about it. And if it dries out to something like good to soft, good in places, I could see this horse not dissimilar to good old Jeff Kidder, coming through and winning. He does race prominently. He won't be far off the pace. Remember, Jeff Kidder was held up a long way off the pace last year before scything through them, going towards the last like a knife through butter. But Luna Power, I think, is a horse that Noel Mead has probably identified as a horse that has the type of credentials that give him a chance to do something close to what Jeff Kidder did last season, especially if he gets the decent ground. He's only had a light campaign, and 20-1, I think Luna Power has to go very well indeed. So there is Noel. We all owe him a drink, I think, after what he did for us last year. So there's Noel Mead and Luna Power. The last race, day one, is the National Hunt Chase. I'm interested to read that comment about Jungle Boogie. If it's not qualified, then they're probably going to maybe look at the 3-miler. So that is very, very interesting. I do think Jungle Boogie, if that proves to be incorrect and he is qualified, then I'd love to see him run in that race. But if he isn't qualified, maybe with not having had enough runs over fences, then obviously he's not going to take his chance, is he? So Jungle Boogie will be looking for during the course of the festival, and I'll be looking at him more closely as we go through to our daily bulletins. So that's the day one. I'm going to move on to the rest. I just want to say, if you're still awake, and I'm glad to see that quite a few of you are with me and they're logging on, a few hundred people, which is really terrific that you've taken the time out from your Thursday evening. I hope you've got a cup of tea and a cake or something just to keep you going. I just want to talk about assessing a race, because I know that loads of people that read the form book, they've got all their different ways of looking at things and going through the very various relative merits of different horses. And the one thing I've developed, and I don't mind sharing this with you, and it's served me really well since over the last few years I've really started concentrating on horses at double figure odds, is that I tend to do the opposite of what most people do, which has basically been the story of my life, to be honest. You look at a race and you have your runners and riders, and the race cards are presented in betting order, and everybody has a look and they go to the top and they look at the favourite and think, why is that favourite? And obviously you can see why the decision has been made that it has the best chance, and so on and so forth. Well, my way of doing things is kind of counterintuitive. And what I do, I start at the bottom of the list and I say to myself, why hasn't this horse got a chance? And I start working my way up until I get to 1 or 2 or 3 that I think, well, I don't see why he shouldn't run well. And oh, it's 33-1. And I work my way up, and then you compare the ones that you've marked off as having some sort of a chance at odds with those that are forecast towards the head of the market. And sometimes, and believe me, try it for yourselves, you wonder to yourself, well, why is he 5-1 and he's 33-1? And then you say to yourself, well, seems to me the sensible thing is to have a few quid on the outsider rather than the 5-1 shot. And of course, you're going to be wrong more often than you're right when you're betting the bigger odds. But I do think that sometimes horses are overlooked for a whole host of reasons. And my way is basically starting from the bigger odds and working my way up. A lot of people would never consider that because they think, well, I'm wasting my time looking at something at 100-1 or whatever. And most times you can very quickly discount some of them that are big odds, because quite clearly they're big odds because they're not good enough or they're outclassed. And that's just a point I wanted to make as a way of looking at bigger odds horses just from a slightly different prism. Let's put it that way. And as I'm sure those that follow me regularly have found out, it has served me and hopefully you as well pretty well. Well, I'm going to move on now to day 2 at Cheltenham next Wednesday. We start with that Ballymore Novices hurdle, and again, so many good horses declared there. We're still not sure who's going to run and who isn't going to run, but I think one thing we can be sure of, it's going to be a a cracking race. Now, there's a question here for me from Wendy Locke. So, Wendy, thanks very much for joining me. She says, "Hi, Paul, the live stream sounds good." That's good. That was before she heard it, so she might have a different view now. And she says, "My questions are," and she's like one of those political interviewers, which is me sometimes, and you always manage to get 2 questions in when you've got the mic, just to try and get your money's worth. What do you think of Paul Nicholls' stage star for Cheltenham? And please comment on who you think will be the Gold Cup winner and why. Thank you for all your brilliant tips. Pleasure. I really enjoy your insights and often bet with your selections. Thank you, Wendy. Well, I'll come to the Gold Cup in due course. But as far as stage star is concerned, he's interesting because unlike quite a lot of the Irish runners, this horse, Stage Star, he is trained by Paul Nicholls, who has just given him the 1 entry. And he's gone straight there. He's obviously decided this horse is a Ballymore horse, and I'm going to run him in that race. And I think that's almost certainly what's going to happen. As long as he stays sound, he'll probably go there, if I'm not mistaken. Stage Star, who's got some really good form, Wendy. Harry Cobden is already jocked up to ride. I can tell you that much as I bring his details up. And he's won all 3 this season after finishing placed in the Aintree Bumper last term. And of course, he won that Grade 1 at Newbury, the Challow Hurdle, last time out. And I remember that. He really started to pour it on going down to the second last. And he bounded away. Now, I don't think there'll be any problems with stamina. And although he won on soft ground, he'd also won well on good to soft and good. And he'll come here a relatively fresh horse. He'll have had a nice break, and I just would not put you off at all. I think Stage Star could run very well indeed. So I won't put you off at all. And we've also got a related question from Martin Buttery. So thank you to you, Martin, for writing in. And you said, question for me, do I think Paul Nicholls' horses are now coming good for Cheltenham, even though he had a quiet period, hitting 23% as opposed to 27, 29 before Christmas. And he asked about Aintree as being more of a target. Well, what I would say is that Paul Nicholls is a great trainer. He's no less a trainer, really, than Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott. Of course, he's the champion trainer. And it's just a question of the ammunition that you have. If we go back a few years when you had Denman and Cato Star and Big Bucks and so many more great horses, he was farming these festival meetings. He will want to win at Cheltenham just as much as he ever has. It's a question of the firepower. And as far as his form, well, it's no secret that his horses get vaccinated at the turn of the year. And normally they go through a quiet period for 2 or 3 weeks. That period, for whatever reason, was extended to 4, 5 or 6 weeks this year. His horses seem to have come back perfectly well now. Their form is perfectly good. I wouldn't put any of you off backing a Paul Nicholls horse. And as for Aintree, well, I think it just might be that he has a stronger team for Aintree simply because the kind of horses that he has these days, some of them are probably better suited to the sharper, flatter track than the undulating, stiffer Cheltenham track as well. But I'd be very surprised if he goes home empty-handed. I'm sure he'd be very disappointed from Cheltenham. So that's the Ballymore. I don't have a tip of my own in that. The Brown Advisory Novices Chase, a race, again, I'm not going to be tipping in really there. And I'm going to take you straight on to the Coral Cup. Let's go to the Coral Cup, which is the 250. It's another really good betting race. Now, there was a horse that I was really hoping was going to run. And Joe, I think, is going to probably bring up an image of this horse on screen for us. And that horse is Colonel Mustard. Colonel Mustard, trained by Lorna Fowler, who used to broadcast for a period with me, and the former Lorna Bradburn, you may remember. She was a talented amateur rider, and the whole family very much steeped in racing. And she has a stud farm out in Ireland with her husband Harry, and they also train some horses, and they do really well. And this Colonel Mustard, I was really hoping was going to run in this race, but it appears that he's going to probably go for an alternative. He may go for the Ballymore, If he does go for the Ballymore, I might be tempted into a bet. I'll have a look at the final decks. I think he's also in the County Hurdle as well. Take a good look at Colonel Mustard's form, because he is a horse that I think has got a massive chance wherever he goes, because he's got such talent. He was second to John Barnard Ascot. He's third to Sir Gerhard in the Grade 1 at Leopardstown. And I think because he's with Lorna and not Willie Mullins, Gordon Elliott, or Henry de Bromhead, or Paul Nicholls, or Nicky Henderson, I think he will be overpriced whichever race he runs in. And I wish Lorna the very best of luck. She will not have even thought twice about bringing this horse over if he wasn't going to run a good race wherever he goes. Also, I just want to come to a message from the Urge. I think that's his name, or that's his handle anyway. Funny how people come up with these names, isn't it? The Urge or the Urge. He was watching another blog a couple of weeks ago. How dare you? And Paul Nicholls, he said, "Let slip." Was it out the side of his mouth like that? He said, "McFabulous." There's Paul. Do you remember him winning on Play School and Broadheath in the Hennessy? He was a terrific jockey in his day. A lot of people forget that. Great trainer, but terrific jockey in his day as well. Well, anyway, back to the Erg. He said that McFabulous in the Coral Cup, he said McFabulous won't get 3 miles, which I think is probably true. I think this is a perfect trip for McFabulous, and he's jumped in with both feet at 25, non-runner, no bet. And I wouldn't put you off. It's such an open race. I don't think McFabulous will be 25 to 1 now. I'm sure that they've probably trimmed him up a bit. McFabulous for the Coral Cup, but just having a look through. Yeah, he's best price 14 to 1 now, so you clearly got in at a nice price there. That's a decent bet, I'd say. He'll give you a run for your money, McFabulous. He's a classy horse, no doubt about it. He ran well in graded company. So Colonel Mustard, who is not going to run in the Coral Cup. It's a race I'm going to have to revisit now. There are 1 or 2 horses. I know Langadan's a horse that a lot of people have been looking at. He is a horse that I think has probably been targeting this race. He had a little spin round. Can't remember where it was, Taunton or somewhere like that. It wasn't given a very hard race. The Shunter, who's been mentioned by correspondence earlier, and Camprond is a horse that may run there, but I hope instead he's going to run in the County Hurdle on day 4. Camprond is a horse, if he were to be declared to run for the Coral, I'd be interested in him because he's a horse who won the Persian War, and I think he's a really classy horse who could be ahead of his mark. There might be others at bigger prices. We'll take a look nearer the time, but I'm going to move on to the Champion Chase, because I will be having a bet in the Champion Chase. Always just a fabulous sight to see the pick of the 2-milers taking each other on, and we've got a race for the ages here. I mean, let's hope that they all get there to the starting tape for the Champion Chase this year, because it's going to be great to see Shishkin and Ergameni taking each other on again, and you throw Chacun Pour Soir into the mix as well, and you have what could prove to be a race for the ages. I mean, it really could. I was at Cheltenham. I remember seeing a great Champion Chase. Was it 93 or 94 when Deep Sensation won a 3-way fight for an absolutely stellar renewal? And this could be a brilliant race as well. It was such a marvellous contest at Ascot, Shishkin against an Ergameni, and there won't be much at all between the two. Tactics, they're going to play a big part. Chacun Pour Soir bounced back last time out, but I just can't have him at Cheltenham. I know Willie still keeps the faith, but I'm not going to be with him. And because I am looking for value, as always, and because I'm hoping that the ground is going to be decent, I do really think that Dan Skelton has one hell of a chance here with Nubi Negra. Now, I'm sure a lot of you people have been watching stable tours and Cheltenham previews, all sorts of things. And Dan Skelton really does hold his horse in very high regard, and with good reason. Remember, he was beaten just half a length last year in the Champion Chase by Put the Kettle On, arguably a little bit unlucky. You'd have to say, hand on heart, this year's renewal is different class. I mean, it's a much better race this year. And Put the Kettle On, although she loves the track, I can't see her figuring this year really on what she's done. He probably, almost certainly, left his race behind and wasn't the same horse at Punchestown. But after a nice break, he came out and beat Politolog in really good style at Cheltenham earlier in the season. And then he just didn't quite run his race at Sandown last time out, which is a course that I don't think is ideal for him. I think he's a spring horse. I think he's a horse who goes really well when he's fresh. If you look at him, for example, he beat Altior, do you remember, at Kempton after 10, 11 months off back in December of 2020. And I think he's going to go there fresh. I'm hoping he's going to have his ground. The stable continues, to do really well. He's got so much speed. And if the other three really start to slug it out, I could just see Nubi Negra just being weighted with him behind the leading three and then being pulled out to come through and produce a late finish. Now, I think he's about a 10-to-1 shot or thereabouts at the moment. And so for me, that is a proper each-way price. Nubi Negra, everybody's 10-to-1. The bookies are absolutely uniform. I'm just looking at an odds comparison site. Nobody is prepared to put their head above the parapet and even go 11-to-1. So I think Nubi Negra is going to run a great race. And although Shishkin and Ergameni, they're both fabulous horses, they're not rated that far in front of Nubi Negra, only £4. And that's just a slight mistake or a slight off day or slightly unlucky in running. And Nubi Negra could be there to grab them. So he's going to be the one for me in the Champion Chase. So there you go. And then just moving on to, I'm not going to bother with the cross-country chase. It's a race I don't like. But best of luck to good old Tiger Roll if he goes for it. It would be wonderful to see him win. But to be honest, I just hope he comes back safe and sound. I don't understand why they're continuing with him. The Champion Bumper. I know quite a few of you have got involved. You like to get involved in the Champion Bumper. But that's a race that there are so many horses that are unexposed and could easily improve a ton from just one outing to another. I won't be getting involved. When you think of horses like old Q Card popping up at 40-to-1, how was Q Card ever a 40-to-1 shot? Great horse, because we didn't know about him. That's the plain and simple answer. So the Bumper, I won't be getting involved in. Let me just have a look at one or two of your comments. John McGlynn, Shishkin a certainty. Well, I hope so. If you're backing him at odds on, it need to be. Good luck, John. Thanks for joining me. Mr. Swan Silver agrees with you, Paul. Each way surds. I think he's probably referring to Nubi Negra. Nice to hear that you're concurring there with me. I'm just going to take you to race number 6 at Cheltenham on day 2, the Grand Annual, the Johnny Henderson Grand Annual. This is another terrific spectacle. For those of you like me that love national hunt racing, I don't think there's a greater sight really than seeing great 2-mile chasers really really going for it, and they don't half go for it in the Grand Annual because they go like the clappers over 2 miles. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what turns up here, first of all. But I'm not going to go through them all, but I'm just going to suggest 2 horses for you for the Grand Annual to take a look at. Now, the first of them is Editor du Gite for Gary Moore, a horse I really like. He is a very, very progressive 8-year-old, and He's won 4 of his last 5. The only one he didn't win, he unseated rider at Ascot in October, but he's since come out and won twice at Cheltenham. He's won on the old course, he's won on the new course. He just loves it at Cheltenham, and he keeps improving. He scrambled home off 140, then they put him up £7, and he won by 4 lengths off 147, and now he's up to 153. They may well not have got to him. And again, Editor Dugit is a horse who is ideally served by a sound surface. So a strong gallop and a sound surface, and he's a pretty sound jumper, even allowing for that unfortunate unseat at Ascot at the start of the season. I think Editor Dugit has to go really well. I'm really hoping he takes his chance. I just want to check on his odds. And he is currently, you can still get 16s with a few firms, Bet365, William Hills, Unibet, and I would give him a proper coat of looking at. And then there's another horse that I'm interested in, and I'd probably be betting the 2 of them in this race, betting Editor Dugit and also backing Castle Grace Paddy. Castle Grace Paddy. And this is a nice horse. He really is. Trained by Pat Fahy over in Ireland. He's an 11-year-old, and he's high up in the weights, but it's for a reason, because he's a blooming good horse, I tell you. And he's run a stack of good races. Castle Grace Paddy. He's placed in grade 1s. He's won 3 grade 2s. He was 3rd under a big weight at Fairyhouse on his first run for 3 months. That was on the 9th of January, behind Dunvegan. And that was off a mark of 155. Now, what we're finding, of course, the English handicapper tend to assess horses differently to the Irish handicapper, and invariably they run off higher marks in Britain than they do in Ireland. But Castle Grace Paddy is actually running off the same mark. And I think that's interesting. So Castle Grace Paddy, I think he's got a touch of class. I think he could even be reasonably handicapped, even with 11 stone 11. And if they put on a good conditional, maybe to take a few pounds off, if it's a good conditional rider, then I can see him running really well. He's got a very good cruising speed, this horse. And I think his odds at the moment are a bit of an insult. And I've already had a little tickle at quite big odds each way. And I'm just hoping that he runs. I won't be having any more on, just hoping that he does take his chance. So for me, it'll be 2 horses for the Grand Annual. Editor Dugit at around 16s at the moment. Castle Grace Paddy 4040 to 1. So there you go. So we're halfway through. I've got to be honest that we'll be moving on, of course, to the next 2 days, and I've got quite a few more selections, but the bulk of a lot of my very strong thoughts have been in this first bit, but I do have some really interesting stuff for you, and a very tasty one for the Gold Cup. I just want to say a couple of words before we go to day 3 about bookmakers' offers and things like that, and shopping around. Now, these days, you'll find when you get to the festival, loads of bookies offering you this, offering you that to open an account. Fair enough if you want to get involved. Do really look around for the best value and compare odds between firms, because you'll find the most remarkable differences. And it's good to see bookies now trying to get your business by offering 6 places, even 7, when there's really big handicap fields. Some firms offering 4 places in the graded races, even when there are only 10 or 11 runners. That is good to see. But what I would say is that one thing that started to really trouble me of late is the starting prices. Now, I used to be an SP returner on track, which was a really important job. You had to decide the odds for the off-course industry, obviously with the starting price, by assessing the market, focusing on the strongest bookmakers where money was available to be laid at decent odds. And what's happened over recent years is the system has become computerized, and the sample is selected by representatives of SIS and so on and so forth, which of course is bookmaker owned. I'm not going to go into it too far, but I had concerns more than a decade ago, 15, 20 years ago, that the computerization of the SP would not be to the benefit of punters. And I've been watching more and more that we're seeing, I don't have any stats for this, but especially broadcasting regularly, a lot of horses shortening up just before the off. You don't get the odds being justified anymore. Now, what I mean by that is that in my day, when a horse was shortening up in the minutes before the off, you had to go back and find out where the money was and how much was going on it. Those aren't published anymore. You remember those lists of bets, and we used to have to calculate them, and we knew exactly what was going on. These days, we don't know where the money is and how much is it. We just have to take their word that the money is coming in. So while the bookies are giving you some great offers and opening accounts and great place offers, on the other hand, the SPs sometimes can be a little bit disappointing. So do keep an eye on that and see what you think during the Cheltenham Festival. And we would need to keep the bookies honest for this. A lot of them are very, very reputable, but some of them, I do think we're seeing horses shortening up very often without real cause. Of course, you have the alternative to bet on the exchanges if the liquidity is there, where you can find a lot bigger odds. And, the choice is there. You do have choice these days. But I do think that the authorities in racing need to take a very, very close look at how the SPs are being decided. They've changed a lot of the odds as well. You'll see things now like 11-5 and all sorts of things, just making sure that you don't get 9-4. It's that little bit less, a bit here, a pinch there. Watch out for that. It's going to be a big issue, I'm sure, as well, going forward. Right, well, if you're still awake, I'm going to take you on to day 3. I see that we're rattling on into an hour here, so I wasn't sure how long this was going to take. Day 3, Cheltenham Festival. First race, the Turner Novices chase. Again, the same story with so many horses declared that may or may not run, so I haven't got a strong view on this one. The Patemps Handicap Hurdle. There's a race for you, the Patemps. And it always makes me laugh, actually, when you hear people talking about in the forums and things like that, which I don't see very often, but they always say, oh, this one's been laid out for this one at Cheltenham. I think the truth is that just about every horse has been laid out to be at its best at Cheltenham. So let's not kid ourselves that they all want to win at Cheltenham. Believe me, they're all there at their absolute peak and prime. And I'm just looking here for the Patemps. We're looking at about best price, probably 6-1 the field. Sire de Burley, who's got a great record in the race, 7-1. Alaphilippe, big chance for the home team as well. Sporting John. Quite a few interesting horses. The Big Galloper, he's a horse that could be a plunge horse for Charles Burns if he takes his chance in that. But I just don't have a strong enough view on the race at the moment without knowing exactly what's going to run. So if it really dries out, it stays dry, then Go Another One would be of interest if he runs. He's about a 40-1 chance for John McConnell. Not if the ground is soft, you can forget him. But if it's good ground, Go Another One, another classy Irish raider, he might be of interest in the Patemps. And it wouldn't surprise me because he ran well behind the Big Galloper at Musselburgh. And I'm a huge fan of John McConnell, who I think is a much underrated trainer. Now, the Ryanair chase, Allaho, I think he's going to be a very, very tough nut to crack. And I think for those that like to back a short one, he's probably going to be the banker of the meeting, I think, for quite a lot of people in the Ryanair chase. Just looking at his odds here, well, 4-6, half farm on. It's a very thin price. I mean, I just would never get involved. We'll wait to see what's going to run there, but it just doesn't appeal to me as a betting race. Now, I'll take you to the Stayers Hurdle because here's a race. Here's a race that I think, first of all, it's a great race. I just love it. There always seems to be a story behind the Stayers Hurdle. Flooring Porter popped up last year, and Gavin Cromwell's got him again, and he's done nothing wrong this season. He ran really well last time, 7-2 top price. Now, Gavin Cromwell's horse, he's bounced back to form last week. I was broadcasting on some of the Irish racing, and I think he had 4 winners in 24 hours last weekend. So watch out for Gavin Cromwell's horses this weekend. And of course, the Stayers Hurdle is a really brilliant race, and there are a lot of horses that you can make out a case for. And one that I'm particularly interested in this race, and I did mention it a few weeks ago, is Asterion Phalange. I'd love Willie Mullins to run him. I don't know if he's made a decision yet, but if Asterion Phalange runs, then he'll be carrying my money. He's a horse that I think is hugely talented. We've seen him over fences, so clumsy at 1 or 2 fences and paying the price. A faller at Punchestown in December when he was going to go really close in the John Durkan. He then fell at the last, didn't he, in the King George, when he might not have won, but he was probably going to be placed. And then last time out, again, finishing 4th, staying on over 3 miles at Leopardstown in the Irish Gold Cup. But he was a really good hurdler in his time as well. And so fought to Shishkin, remember, over 2 miles in the Supreme Novices hurdle a couple of years ago. And I'd just love to see him tried at 3 miles over hurdles. I think he's unexposed. I think he's got so much talent. Isn't he just a gorgeous looking horse? And for me, if he runs, Asterion Phalange will be carrying my money in the Stayers Hurdle. Best price 10 to 1 with Bet365 and William Hills at the moment. Paisley Park, I'm sure he's going to run his race. He's such a trier and he seems to be back. Champ, Classical, Dreamtime, Hill. We shall see. But for me, it is Asterion Phalange that I like the look of. And I think he'll go really well if he is allowed to switch back to timber. Now, the Paddy Power Plate is the 5th race on day 3. No real opinion at the moment. I'll be looking at the decks much more closely at the final declaration stage. The Mares Novices Hurdle, I'm not interested. I can't be having that race at all, I'm sorry. So the last race on day 3 is the Kim Muir. And this one, of course, is for amateur jockeys, and a good jockey counts for a lot in these races. Some of these top amateurs, of course, are right up there with the best professionals. They are very, very good. You know, the likes of Jamie Codden, Derek O'Connor, even Sam Whaley-Cohen, and plenty of others. Now, there are a couple of horses in this race that, if they run, I will be taking a very, very close interest in them. One I've already mentioned in a previous bulletin, and that is Ain't That a Shame. And great song as well, for those of you that like your rock and roll, Ain't That a Shame. He's trained by Henry de Bromhead, and this horse is really lightly raced. He's only had 6 runs and only 3 over fences. But after finishing 3rd to Stadler on his first run over fences at Fairyhouse in December, just a couple of weeks later, he came out and finished 2nd to Galopin de Champ, who, of course, could be, you know, potentially odds on, depending on which race he goes for at this festival. And he wasn't knocked about once it was clear he wasn't going to catch Galopin de Champ, and Henry de Bromhead, no doubt, instructed them not to kill the horse. And then last time out, it was just a bit of a farce, really, because he ran at Navan in a beginner's chase, came there absolutely cruising. Rachel did absolutely nothing wrong, but she probably got there too soon. She led, I think, 3 out. And even going to the last, it was a question of how far. And he just idled. He idled and was caught by Champagne Platinum. Now, that form has been franked, actually, because Champagne Platinum has gone on to run very well. 2nd, I think it was, in the Grand National Trial at Punchestown. I just think this horse is tailor-made for this race. They normally go a really strong gallop, these amateurs, over this trip. He'll be able to settle. He'll be able to get cover. They'll be able to deliver him, hopefully, between the final 2 fences or even at the last. And I'd love to see him coming up that hill. Yielding ground has suited him well, but he's also gone well on soft, even heavy. So if it rains, it won't be a problem. He's got it all. Ain't That a Shame? And I think he's reasonably handicapped off a mark of 144. So for me, Ain't That a Shame is my sort of principal selection, let's put it that way, in the Kim Muir Folk War win. And let's just, if I can bring up some odds here and take a look at what's being offered at the moment. He's being backed. Best price 10 to 1. So his best price 10 to 1 at the moment, and it could be that, you know, he becomes a steamer. We'll see. But Ain't That a Shame is one. Now the other one, if he runs, is Commodore. Commodore for Venetia Williams, lovely horse, Commodore. You probably remember his victory in his only start so far this season. It was after having a wind operation, and he won at Cheltenham over 3¼ miles. He slammed Mr. Fogpatch's 15 lengths, and he's done the job there. Look at him, isn't he? A lovely sort of keen, eager horse. There's Venetia Williams, terrific trainer, particularly of chasers. And there's lovely Commodore. And let me just say that if his wind is still clear and he's breathing well, the fact that he's gone up £9 or so, I still think that he has a massive chance, Commodore. So he's another horse that I would suggest is likely to run very well indeed. In his case, a decent surface is essential because he just doesn't seem to operate as well in very testing ground, even though he did push Snow Leopardess very close at Haydock on his first run of the term. So for me, Commodore, I know he's won in soft ground and all sorts of things in the past, but I think these days, given the way he went so well on a decent surface at Cheltenham after the wind operation, it seems to me that probably the heavy soft ground really, you know, gets to the bottom of him, and he should go very well. So those will be my two against the field in the Kim Muir Folk War win. So Commodore, but Ain't That a Shame, would be my principal choice. Now, before I go any further, some points here. Nathan Hall, hi Paul, really enjoying tonight's live. Thank you, Nathan. With everyone often saying that my Cheltenham track will or won't send a horse, my question is, what makes a horse suited to Cheltenham? Wow, that's a really good question. Well, very briefly, if you've not been to Cheltenham, it's hard to really appreciate it from the telly, but it is very, very undulating. You know, you're up and down, and there are a lot of horses that just don't enjoy, you know, going downhill and then uphill, jumping fences, going towards a bend, that kind of thing. And I think you'll find that there are plenty of horses that appreciate a galloping track, you know, those kind of Newbury horses or Doncaster, those kind of horses. Another thing that, of course, counts against a lot of horses if they don't go, they're not genuine left-handed horses. And this, of course, was an issue with Desert Orchid, for example, who really was a better horse always going right-handed. He overcame that because he was supremely talented. And, of course, he won that amazing Gold Cup beating Yahoo. But you need a horse that's going to go left-handed. You need a horse that's going to be comfortable on the undulations. Very often you need a horse that is comfortable in a big field. There are a lot of horses who don't like being crowded, or they get scared, or feel just uncomfortable in a big field. So those are all the factors. If they don't have those, then they're probably not going to be a Cheltenham horse, really. So that would be my quick sort of answer to that one, Nathan. I'm going to move on, though, because I want to finish before the witching hour. Let's take you to day 4 at Cheltenham. And this, of course, is a day when there's going to be a huge crowd. I think all the tickets are sold out, I think, at Cheltenham for day 4. And it starts with the Triumph Hurdle, a race that for me has so many great memories. I might have mentioned it before, but at the risk of repeating itself, I think it was 1986 when I had very nearly, as a very young man, a huge anti-post, a win on a horse called Son of Ivor for Dermot Weld, who I was backing from the October, every week having a couple of pound each way for the Triumph Hurdle, because I've been told by somebody that was pretty much in the know over in Ireland that Dermot Weld had laid the horse out for this race. Excuse me. Well, came to the day of the race, and Son of Ivor went off about 9 to 1 or something. He'd won both his starts in Ireland. I was very, very excited holding all these anti-post vouchers. And I remember the race very well because there was a horse called Solar Cloud, which went off like a scalded cat and went clear. And at the foot of the hill, it was still 20 lengths clear or something. And out of the pack came Son of Ivor. And Son of Ivor started to cut back Solar Cloud, who was clearly running on empty going to the last. And I just remember it so clearly. It looked like for the world he was going to get up and get past Solar Cloud. He just couldn't quite get there. You may well be able to see a video of it somewhere on YouTube. And in the end, I think he got beaten 3/4 of a length and a short head because there was a horse called Brunico, I think it was, came flying through of Rod Simpson's to take second. But Solar Cloud held on. And if I'm not wrong, Solar Cloud was actually David Nicholson's first ever winner at Cheltenham. But I got a fabulous each-way payout on Son of Ivor in that Triumph Hurdle. But in those days, of course, until fairly recently, the Triumph Hurdle had loads of runners. It was a really exciting race. For me, the race is gone. It's just not the same race anymore. There aren't enough runners. And once again, we're looking here at the Triumph Hurdle. I don't know how many are going to go this time around, but it's not a race that I really enjoy getting involved in anymore. And so, although Vauban and Fieldor and Pied Piper are probably all very good horses, I'm going to be giving it a miss. Well, let me take you to the County Hurdle, because this is a race that I think we could have a little bit of fun with, the County Hurdle on the last day. It's always ferociously tough, and loads of horses that have good 2-mile handicap form. Indeed, a horse that is a 2.5 miler could even be what you want, because they often go so fast that they slow in the closing stages, and something comes from off the pace and finishes really fast that has stamina to get up the hill, especially if there has been a bit of rain. And just looking at the betting for this one, State Man, I think, is the one that is probably the early favourite for this one at the moment. And well, we'll have to see where that one runs. It's declared in a few races. West Cork, an interesting runner. I think that's the Skeltons. And Colonel Mustard, I see, is being backed. So Colonel Mustard, I think, could well run. It looks like Lorna must have decided, because the odds are changing all the time and so many things going on in the world at the moment. I have to confess to having been a bit distracted for obvious reasons over the last 2 weeks with what's been going on in Eastern Europe. But this Colonel Mustard, I think he's going to run a massive race. And I think they're beginning to lock onto the fact that he could have a huge chance. So Colonel Mustard would be one for you to take a close look at. First Street, I think, is another one that would run very well for Nicky Henderson. First Street, he's a 5-year-old, and he was third at Newbury in that very good Betfair Hurdle won by Glory and Fortune, who we tipped 20-1, the first leg of a 230-1 double a few weeks ago. And I thought that was a very good piece of handicap form. And he's only had 2 runs this season. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see First Street run very well. If the likes of Boer Boy for Dennis Hogan gets in, I think he's quite a long way down the weights. He would be worth a second glance, because his form, Boer Boy, is pretty interesting. I've had a little bit of a look at that. I think he's 50th on the list at the moment. And he was third to Whiskey Sour at Leopardstown last time out. But he was only beaten a length and a quarter by Dysart Diamond at Listowel in September. And, that could potentially win a Grade 1. We shall see. So watch out for Boer Boy if he gets in. And then the other horse that I am quite interested in, depending if he runs in this or he does have 1 or 2 other engagements, is Irascible. Irascible for Henry de Bromhead, for Michael O'Leary's Jigginstown House stud. Remember, he finished 5th to Appreciated in the Supreme Novices Hurdle last season. Only the 1 run this season. Go and have a look at that run at Fairy House There he is, Irascible. Thank you, Joe, doing a great job with all the images and everything. Irascible, trained by Henry de Bromhead, and well, it was his first run with a tongue tie on, and he'd been off for 11 and a half months, and he was given a very sympathetic ride, I think you could say. So wherever he goes, Irascible, I think he will run well. He's in the Coral Cup, and he's also in the County Hurdle. I think he's in the Martin Pipe as well. So I'll be looking out for Irascible, and he will be figuring in my calculations when I'm trying to figure out my final selections for you for our definitive bulletins Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday next week. So let's move on. The Albert Bartlett, well, no strong opinion at the moment. It'd be great to see Hillcrest win for Henry Daly, who's a great guy. We'll have to wait and see what the ground is and what stands its ground there. But let's just go on to the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Why don't we, as we come towards the last 10 minutes or so of this broadcast. And, well, there's no race like it. Just so many of my memories as a racing fan centre around the Gold Cup, Tide Cottage, Captain Christie, Midnight Court in the 70s, the 80s with the likes of Desert Orchid and Dawn Run and Forgive and Forget, and my favourite horse of all time who never won the Gold Cup, Wayward Lad. The 90s, of course, so many great horses. Don't forget, of course, Cato Star and Denman and all those, Conagry Story and whatever else. So this year, let's have a look at the Gold Cup, and A Plus Tard is the favourite, and you know, this is a proper good horse. I mean, they're all terrific horses turning up for the Gold Cup. I'm just trying to bring up the very latest start so I don't mislead you here. Yeah, A Plus Tard, well, at around 7-2 now, joint favourite with Galvin, and then last year's winner Minella Indo, who hasn't fired yet this season, but he's a Cheltenham horse and a spring horse, so let's not rule him out. Protectorat, who I mentioned earlier, he's really interesting. He's got a lot of potential, still a relatively young horse, and Dan Skelton will have him spot on, but as I mentioned earlier, he would need, I think, soft ground to be a serious player. At the front, A Plus Tard and Galvin have already met this season at Leopardstown in the Grade 1 there. That was the Savills Chase, and there was absolutely nothing between them, just a cigarette paper. And A Plus Tard just run out of the Gold Cup last year by Minella Indo. I mean, these are all horses that, you know, they're entitled to go very, very well indeed. There's no doubt about it. Looking further down the list, Album Photo, I just can't see him coming back to win it. Just can't have him, I'm afraid. Allaho's probably not going to run. Chantry House, there's an interesting one for Nicky Henderson. Lovely horse, but I just don't think he's got it. Conflated, is he going to go for the race? We'll have to wait and see. Royal Pagile. Goodness me, if Asterium Phalange turned up in the Gold Cup and not in the Stayers Hurdle, who knows, he might for once put in a clear round and shock us all. I'll have to consider that nearer the time. But at this point in time, there's one horse for me that stands out as a really good bet. And for me, he'd probably be one of my bets of the meeting. And that is Tornado Flyer. Now, there might be a few groans going on. I wish I could hear you out there, but we'll have to wait and see. But Tornado Flyer is the unexposed horse here. How can you say that about a King George winner? Well, you can, because he's only run twice, I think, at 3 miles. And one of them he's won a King George. You know, a horse who'd been plying his trade over 2 miles against the likes of Min and Chacun Pour Soi. And he went up to 2.5 miles last year at the Cheltenham Festival. He was a very close third to Allaho over 2.5 miles in the Ryanair, and he finished really fast there. No match for the winner, but 25-1 he was third. Probably just needed it first time out, and then he came home powerfully at Kempton. Now, I know what a lot of you are going to say, and I'm waiting for people to say to me, yeah, but Kempton, it's an easier track and it's right-handed. Well, first of all, we know Tornado Flyer goes well left-handed because he ran a cracker at Cheltenham last year. He's run other good races left-handed. And I think one point is that a lot of people seem to underestimate how you really need to stay at Kempton over 3 miles. Now, it is a flat course and it is sharp, but because of that, they tend to go an absolute end-to-end gallop. And you'll see horses coming down that home straight time and time again in Grade 1 3-mile races, out on their feet because they've gone a real searching gallop. And Tornado Flyer was never stronger than over the final 2 fences. And I think he may be even better with an extra 2 furlongs coming up the hill. And I do think Tornado Flyer has kind of been forgotten here, a King George winner who wiped the floor with them. And he'll be the one for me. He goes on decent ground. He goes on soft ground. I think he'll stay. I think he could improve again at this trip. And so for me, Tornado Flyer is the one. And just looking at the odds available at the moment, 12-1 with plenty of firms. I'm sure on the day, if enough horses stand their ground, you'll be able to bet 4 places and so on and so forth. So that's my horse there for the Gold Cup as things stand. Of course, all my views here are subject to change, depending on ground, depending on declarations, and depending on me going through the form and suddenly having one of those light bulb moments that every now and then do tend to happen. I'll just take you past the 5th and 6th races. The Hunter Chase, great fun, but not a betting race. The Mare's Chase, I don't bet in the mare's races. So the last race of the meeting, the Getting Out Stakes, or as we on the racecourse used to call it, the Getting Further In It Stakes. So you don't want to be trying to smash your way out of trouble if you come to the last race at Cheltenham and you're trying to find the winner of the Martin Pipe. Let me just say that this is going to be a really tough race. There are quite a few interesting horses declared for the Martin Pipe, and I just want to focus on a couple of them before I leave you on this Thursday evening. And I want to try and bring up the entries for the Martin Pipe. Here we go. And of course, it's 2.5 miles, it's conditional jockeys. And just looking at the betting as it stands at the moment, Langadan, well, yeah, Langadan and State Man, both horses that, you know, the form book is there and you can see why they've got chances. Just looking at a few others there, they're betting sort of 10-1 at the moment, bar 3 or 4. I suspect that, you know, come the race itself, they'll probably maybe even bet 6-1 the field, because the bookies, if they've had a good Cheltenham, they'll be trying to get your money and, you know, pushing out a few to try and get a result in the last. The horse is the horse that has taken my eye here, and it is declared earlier in the week, but if it runs, I think it has a proper chance. And the horse is called Camprond. I did mention this one earlier on, but Campronde is a horse who I like very much indeed. And I'm just trying to find him on my screen, which has got a little bit tired, but hopefully it will manage to stay on well enough to see out this final session. And Campronde is a horse trained by Philip Hobbs, and he is a progressive handicapper. He was 4th in that good handicap at Cheltenham early in the season, over the course and distance in the Grade 3 Great Wood. He's won over 2.5 miles in the Persian War earlier in the season. And I just think that he is a well-handicapped horse. I do think that Campronde has the profile that suggests he could really put in a big run. Now, he's also owned by JP McManus, and JP, one of the really good guys in racing. I'm a huge fan of his, and I'm sure that he might have been licking his lips when he saw that Campronde remains on 140. If they put a really good condition along, which I'm sure Philip Hobbs will do, I think he's got a really huge chance. and JP sure to have winners, I think, at the festival. And for me, Camprond is probably going to be the one that if he runs there, wherever he runs, I think he's going to have a very, very big chance. So final day, I'll be interested in Tornado Flyer, Camprond, Irascible, First Street, and good old Colonel Mustard. I'll wait to see which of those stand their ground in the county hurdle. And so finally, we'll move on to my sort of each way festival lucky 15, which I promised you at the start of the show. And of course, I hope they all run. But this is just a guide for a bit of fun. There are a few of my favorites. Lunar Power in day one. I think Lunar Power has got a massive chance in the Boodles, a race that has been so kind to us. So Lunar Power, I think, is going to run well for Noel Mead. Editor du Gite in the Grand Annual. On Wednesday, day 2, Editor du Gite. Oh, there's a terrific graphic from Armand Joe on day 2. Ain't That a Shame on day 3 in the Kim Muir, and Tornado Flyer in the Gold Cup. At this point, that would be my sort of each way Yankee lucky 15. And you know, I just hope that a lot of these horses that I've mentioned stand their ground. I hope we get decent ground. Good to soft ground would be terrific throughout the festival. And I hope that you're going to be kind enough to join me the day before each of the 4 days at the festival, when I'll be having a final look at the horses that are declared and giving you my definitive thoughts. But I'm really grateful to so many of you joining me on this live feed. I hope you haven't been too bored. And it's been great to see those comments coming in afterwards. I will be looking back in. Thank you, Helen Sheridan. Really nice production. Absolutely. And a big shout out to Joseph Smith, who's in our studios. Poor man having to listen to me chuntering away, rattling on and trying to come up with captions and pictures to match. And a big thank as well to Robert Waterman for his partnership in this venture, which has been such great fun. And I really hope that you'll be joining me and that we manage to back a winner or two at Cheltenham. I'm not going to be putting up any selections for this weekend. I think with this bulletin, you've got enough food for thought, and I'm not going to get involved in the Imperial Cup at Sandown, so on and so forth. Why don't you like betting on the mares, Paul? Matt Callan. Well, I just don't. I can't tell you. They just don't flip my switch. They don't do it for me. So I will be back with a big week next week, a lot of homework to do. Remember, don't get too heavily involved. Enjoy your racing, and don't be frightened to back one at a decent price. If you do as I do and start to work from the lower end of the betting market upwards, you may well suddenly stumble across something that you think has got a better chance than its odds suggest, and that's the time to step in and have a go. So that's me done. Thanks very much for joining me, and looking forward to you spreading the word and hopefully telling as many people as possible to join us for next week and the Cheltenham Festival here at SportsBet TV. Thanks very much, and bye-bye for now. It's been great having your company. I'm looking forward to reading through all your comments. Bye-bye for now. Take care.